Okay, Chair, we are now live.
Okay, well, we'll start the meeting then. Welcome to the November meeting of the Grimsby Green Advisory Committee. We do have a quorum. First item on the agenda then is the disclosures of any pecuniary interest. Do we have any? If so, please raise your hand. I don't see any. I want to go over the agenda and have it approved. If I could just take a little bit more time than we normally do. I want to welcome the Director of Planning, Antonietta Minicello, to our meeting tonight. She's the first item on the agenda. Then we have a tree planting item, which comprises 4 matters. I believe Bruce will be speaking to one of the items. Sarah will be talking to another, Olivia to a third, and a third. And then I don't know who's talking to the tree planting donation item. We will find out when we get to that. Next item is the Grimsby Green Acknowledgement Awards. We had an email from Haley at the last minute, just about 10 minutes before this meeting, that she had a work thing. So she's not able to attend, or she may attend late. So I understand, Aaron, you're going to present on that issue, and I saw an email from Haley to you, so good luck. On that item, we'll also be looking at the revised logo, which we looked at last meeting and asked for some minor changes to that. And then we're going to have a status report on the Grimsby Beach Tree Inventory Urban Forest Management Resolution, which we passed at the last meeting. And then Sarah's going to give us a report on the grass mowing matter that's been on our agenda for some time. And Sarah also will give us an update on the recruitment of 2 vacancies that we currently have on our membership. Under new business, I would like to just briefly note that there's an open house on the Grimsby beach, I think on December the 2nd. I want to talk about the report on our activities and accomplishments for this year, which under our terms of reference we're required to do in the 4th quarter of the year. So I just want to talk about that briefly and figure out what we're going to do and who's going to do it. And then I want to take a roll call on who's going to be in attendance at our meeting, which is currently scheduled for December the 22nd. So with those comments, do I have any additions or deletions or comments on the agenda that was sent to you earlier this week?
All I wanted to mention is that we were going to go over the logo again. I'm not sure if we're putting that under the Green Acknowledgement Awards or if it's a separate item.
Yes, I thought I did mention it, and I think I did send it around to everybody on the committee. So if you got home in time to look at your emails, you should have gotten it. But Aaron, I think you've got them. Maybe you can share screen when we get to the Green Acknowledgement Award.
We'll just do it under the Acknowledgement Awards? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
no problem.
Yes.
Okay.
So any other comments on the agenda? Can I have a resolution approving the agenda? Moved by Aaron, seconded by Ryan. Then I'd like to move to the presentation discussion with the Director of Planning, Antonietta Minicello. Welcome to our committee, Antonietta. Antonietta joined Grimsby, I guess it was last July. And in reading your press release, I note that you have a background in sustainability, resilience, and climate change. So the committee was set up to deal with those matters. So we're looking forward to working with you on those matters. So unless, Sarah, did you want to do any other introductory remarks? Okay, if there are none, then Antonietta, I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
Okay, well, thank you very much through you, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to be here tonight and speak to the Grimsby Green Committee. I did put together a few quick slides to help guide some of the things that I wanted to share with you, but then happy to just have a conversation or a question and answer period, whichever the committee prefers. So if I can kindly ask for Peter to get the slides up, then I can start and speak to those.
I'm sorry, Antonetta, did you send those slides to me?
I did, but if it's easier for you, Peter, I'm happy to share my screen if I have permission.
Oh, I see the email now. Sorry, I'll bring that up right.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. So that's me and that's my role here with the town. Next slide, Peter. Actually, before I jump into that, I'll just share a little bit about me. I have a master's in environmental studies, and I am a registered professional planner and also a member of the Canadian Association of Heritage Professionals. And in my career, I've had a series of experiences with environmental initiatives. Notably, I think these are some of the most important ones that I've been the closest involved to. The development of sustainable community development guidelines, which basically address how new development meets criteria. And so basically all new development is scored on how it achieves a series of criteria that affect the environment. Walkability, how water and infrastructure is dealt with, stormwater management, whether it's the how environmentally friendly the buildings are, what materials are used, things like masonry versus stucco. All of these types of details are scored, and before development can be approved, for example, they have to meet a minimum criteria. And this type of system that was developed in Ontario with a partnership with 3 municipalities scores developments in terms of bronze, silver, and gold. And the idea is that the higher your development scores in terms of its environmental sustainability, it gets preferred attention. So it jumps to the top of the pile and it goes first. And that is a resource that, again, I was fortunate enough to be a part of and help implement in my past jobs. The other thing that's a really interesting one that I've been a part of directly is the Sustainable Neighborhood Action Program, and it's called SNAP. And these are usually put on, in my experience, where the conservation authorities partner with local municipalities. And what they do is they look at climate change through urban renewal. So as people renovate their homes, there are incentives for using toilets that use less water, for example, LED lights, or if a park is up for renewal, they'll partner with the municipality. And what they'll do is they'll look for environmentally friendly ways to address that park. So that's another program I've been directly involved in. And then I was one of the founding members of the Institute for a Sustainable Brampton, which really looked at partnering with secondary institutions, places like Electra and providers of power to see how we can collectively come together and deliver on more green energy technologies. And last but not least, I was privileged enough to be invited by the Nordic government. It's called Nordic City Solutions, which represents the 5 Nordic countries, to attend a week-long masterclass in sustainable development in Copenhagen. And so we were able to learn from engineers and planners and also the private sector on how they're leading the way in terms of addressing climate change. So those are some of the things. It's not been always my primary role. It's certainly a passion of mine, and I have been fortunate enough to work on these pieces. Next slide, please. Sorry, Peter, can you kindly change to the next slide? There we go. Thank you. Some of the, in terms of, Mr. Gonson, you were right. I joined very late July last year. And what we've been able to do in that period of time, while addressing some other matters that also needed to be addressed, were asking for native species for plantings through planting applications. We've also added that any tree plantings be planted to support our Carolinian Forest Initiative. I'm not sure if the committee is aware or has been following, but we were also able to deliver Grimsby's first geothermal building. And this one I'm particularly proud of, just because we don't have any policies in our official plan or in our guiding documents that would allow us to ask a developer to bring this part of as part of their development application. But what we were able to do is, working with some of the people in the industry who are leading the way, who basically are like, we're green energy agnostic. So whether it's going to be district energy, cool water heating and cooling, like using cold water from the lakes, whether it's going to be geothermal or a combination of power sources, green power sources, what they do is they create business cases for the industry to show them that geothermal or green energy can be as competitive and cost effective as traditional energy, or even more competitive in terms of what it's going to cost them to deliver that. And then there's huge marketability, because if you're selling the building, you can say, A, you're going to live in a green building, but B, in this case, their fees for energy are going to be at the same price for the next 30 years, which is a huge selling point. So we were able to connect the development industry here with some of those companies that are really progressive and leading the way. And they were able to find a solution that worked for the building, that was cost effective, and that helped them market also a good product, I think, for the Grimsby community. So that just happened earlier this year. And this is just an article that was in the NRU that talked about that. We also are asking, as part of these developments, for electric vehicle charging stations. And then we have the Grimsby Beach, that should say tree strategy, but I had green on my mind, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then I am also leading alongside with Ashley McCullum, the Downtown Reimagined program. And there we've put into the RFP and into the work with our consultants for LID features that when we look at redoing the road surface, we look for low impact development, different ways of dealing with water instead of just sending it straight to the storm sewer. So those are some of the ways that we're trying to contribute to a greener Grimsby. Next slide, please. Some of the other planned initiatives that we have is, I mentioned the SCDGs being adopted by municipalities across Ontario. I'm hopeful that one day the town and possibly the region, I've initiated in discussions with the region to see if they would be interested in adopting those sustainable community development guidelines for all of the region. That way, when a developer comes to the region, whatever municipality they're working with, we are all building any new development that is much more sustainable than what we're currently seeing. Also, I think for the first time ever, when we did our development charges bylaw, I put aside money for environmental initiatives for an environmental master plan or sustainability study. That's the amount that I asked for. And then climate mitigation and adaptation strategy or study. And these two initiatives will all be rolled into the larger initiative of the official plan. But it's the first time we've put aside money that we get through development charges to be directed towards environmental plans. So excited about that. A green strategy. So we are looking to people and municipalities who are requiring a green strategy as part of their complete application. So if your development application, for us to deem you complete, and so you can move on to the next set of stage in the process, you have to submit a green strategy. We're currently looking at preparing some terms of reference for that and seeing if it's feasible. Bird-friendly development through FLAP and different organizations in terms of some of the the taller buildings that we have. And then probably the biggest piece, which will, I think, cause the most change, will be those stronger environmental policies in our official plan. And the region is set to finish their official plan in July of 2022, I believe. And then once theirs is done, we can start ours. And we would like that this committee be a key stakeholder in the green component of the new official plan. And then there is the Grimsby Beach tree strategy. We'll be seeking input from this committee. So that was one of the things that the community told us. They wanted a Grimsby Beach tree strategy. I believe we've sent it to Sarah a little earlier today, and we asked that after I present tonight, we can circulate it to the committee. And then one of the things that we've sort of explored in partnership with Parks and Rec and our friends in Public Works is, whether a tree preservation bylaw is something that we can deliver on, if it's financially feasible and some of the costs. And I put a question mark there because there's still quite a bit that I think needs to be sorted out, and we'll need to bring that to council. But those are some of the initiatives that we're working on. So that's a really quick overview of some of the things that I've been involved in, am currently doing, and hope to do in the near future. And with that, I thank you for your time and open it up to questions and comments.
Okay, maybe I'll kick it off then. In our terms of reference for the committee, which was just approved by council, I think back in October, there is a provision that says, or a clause that says, providing feedback and reviewing studies, plans, development proposals, and other documents referred to the committee by council or staff, and provide advice regarding the use of sustainable practices that create a balance between built and natural environment. So we've been sort of chomping at the bit, I guess, to get something really meaningful and to make a contribution. But very little has been referred to us in terms of commenting. How do you see that working in the future?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I think I see some of those key pieces. So the start is that Grimsby Beach tree strategy, because we have something you can comment on. And then the other piece, which will be the most significant because it will shape how we deal with the planning of our town and our community going forward, will really be the official plan. So once we have a consultant on board for that and we start the environmental work, they'll start consultation with this committee, the community at large. And then there'll be a drafting of the policies that will need to be reviewed and vetted. And I think, I'm not very familiar with your terms of reference, but I did hear if it's referred by council. So, I mean, I guess council could refer those matters to you. But in terms of actually evaluating a development application, you need criteria, you need expertise, and to be able to look at how it contributes to the environment in a negative or positive way, and how we can improve that. And that's why I think some of those pieces that I'm hoping to introduce and move forward will help create that criteria.
Just to respond to that, the clause says referred to the committee by council or staff.
Yeah, so I think as staff, we're going to be referring the Grimsby Beach tree strategy to this committee. And then, like I said, we're already anticipating to have this committee be involved in the creation of the official plan policies in general, and those that pertain to the environment more specifically.
So responding to that, we had a priority setting exercise, I guess earlier this year, maybe late last year, but with the COVID, it's hard to remember when we did things. But our top two priorities are, number one, tree planting and tree preservation. Number two was the Green Acknowledgement Awards. And in terms of climate change, we've been told that the low-hanging fruit is to stop deforestation. And some of us see a lot of deforestation happening here in Grimsby in connection with development. And we see such things as the Nixon property or the Brandhaven property out on Main Street East, where the developer goes in and clear cuts the property before he puts in his application. And members of the committee are wondering, what can we do to improve the situation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, all of these things are governed again by the official plan. It dictates where growth can go and doesn't go. And then with some of those instances, either it's the Niagara Escarpment Commission who gets involved in, where the tree drip line goes and where development can go and whether they're okay with it, what time of year things can happen, and that sort of thing. But in terms of true environmental impact, I think if my stats are still valid, about 70% of environmental pollution and things that are contributing to the warming of the planet are related to transportation. So auto dependency is a really key factor that needs to be tackled if we're going to tackle climate change and make a meaningful difference. But in terms of again, 314 Main Street or some of the examples you set, as developers, they can develop those lands. They can put forward a proposal to develop those lands. And if they're, permitted in the official plan, then they can do that. If they need an amendment, they come through public meetings where this committee is, members of this committee can certainly speak and bring forward any comments that they might have on those pieces. And then it goes to a statutory public meeting and finally to council for a decision.
So you don't ever see development applications coming to this committee for comment?
I can't say that. I don't know what kind of expertise is on the committee to be able to comment on a development application in terms of how does this development application contribute to gray water? How does this development application deal with stormwater management? I've dealt with how even stormwater management ponds are dealt with or dredged annually, or if there's albedo balloons that are placed on them to offset the heat transfer. So I don't know if there's the expertise on the committee to actually review detailed plans to determine how to make them more green or more sustainable. I'm not opposed to exploring that, but really you need a set of expertise. In larger municipalities, there are dedicated environmental planners who are specifically trained to be able to undertake that function.
Well, just going by memory, we have foresters, arborists, engineers, planners on this committee that have a lot of expertise. And I dare say we have some of the expertise in-house here on this committee. They were selected based on their qualifications in the environmental field.
And that's great to hear. I don't know how that's going to relate into the review of development applications.
Well, as you know, we're only an advisory committee. We are not a decision-making committee. I'm going to ask Bruce, do you have some questions to ask? I think you wanted, you were the person that wanted Antonietta to appear before our committee.
Yeah, yes, Chair Carl. Thank you very much. And Antonietta, thank you so much for being with us this evening. You've not been with the town for a year yet.
Over a year. Over a year.
For over a year. And again, as Chair Carl said, with COVID, I lose track of years, it seems. But it's, anyways, what a welcome list of items that you have focused on and hopefully will continue to bring focus to for the town. The list is impressive, and I did not know, other than in speaking to you earlier briefly, that these kind of things were in focus in the town. So to me, this is rewarding and encouraging. And I hope that this committee and council can give you the support that you need. If you achieve half of what you've listed, we will all have done a good job. One thing that I hear tonight is the official plan for the town of Grimsby that's coming up in 2022, 2023. This is going to be a very important document. The region has been hashing it out now for a couple of years. So for the town to basically get marching orders and get it done within a year is going to be quite an accomplishment. And I think that you inviting us or suggesting that this Green Committee be part of that, a stakeholder in the official plan document, is very, very important. I differ from some of my other cohorts on the committee, as I discussed maybe a month ago, in that I'm not that interested in reviewing development applications. I hope that the Green Committee can provide recommendations for policies so that staff expert planning staff can review those committees, keeping in mind our concerns. The couple of specific points I'd like just to look at is the tree bylaw, tree preservation bylaw. Numerous other communities have them. I hope that you can bring a recommendation to them. Each week, unfortunately, as I drive through the town, I see trees that are arbitrarily, or the decision as to whether they stand or not is subject to the landowner's whim. And this I find unfortunate because the town's not even providing guidance as to what those trees are and whether, and even if there was an education program, is that, okay, you're cutting down white pines. You know the significance of white pines compared to the ash tree in your backyard, or I should say buckthorn in your backyard. I think that that's very important. And I won't argue with you about the effects on climate change, whether it be transportation or forest cover. But forest cover is something that we see, we can measure, and it increases the value of our daily lives, let alone increase the value of real estate. And if my prediction is that if the town doesn't take a strong action in terms of educating the town about trees and preserving trees, the community won't be, there will be displeasure. Planting trees is a wonderful program, and the results are in 40, 50 years. But preserving trees, the results are today. To do with construction, and Chair Carl mentioned a couple of places, and I think you mentioned 314 West, and I think that's the Nixon house, is that I've seen one house on Main Street West where the town came in to the developer, a house was being torn down, rebuilt, and a tree protection plan was drawn up and fencing was put around the important trees on the property. And that was part of the development permit. And then I see other properties that are developed that are not within the confines of the NEC. And that tree protection plan isn't there. Now I know there's different parameters or whatever, but I would like to as a member of this committee, I'd like to see what the town actually has on its books for tree protection plans for developments. And you mentioned scoring of developments. When developers come in and clear cut a site, that the visual impact of that is huge, and it lasts in memories. So I welcome seeing what the town has as a tree protection plan requirement for developments. And again, this goes back to the importance of the official plan that's coming up, because the town can, as we've discussed, it can set standards higher than the regional plan. And I'd like members of the committee to remember that the regional plan sets out the floor. Correct me if I'm wrong, Antonita, but I believe that the town can set higher standards. And I look forward to hearing more about what the town is proposing, what the town does now. And Antonita, you certainly opened my eyes, and I think our eyes to what's in forefront in your mind as we go along. And I hope that your initiatives and concerns are relayed well, that you work in a team with the other departments of the town and they all share your things. But one last specific question. You referred to development plans in asking for native trees. Can we not get to the state where the native trees is the requirement, and by town projects and developments, and non-native trees not be utilized? That's my only question to Antonita, Chair Carl.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we can have the requirement that sometimes the recommendation is it's a condition that native trees, native species be used. There's a list that the region has, and then recently with the Carolinian initiative, we've been asking, and they have to. It's built into either a site plan agreement or a subdivision agreement that they have to plant native trees. So yes, we can make it mandatory that they have to plant trees that are native and or Carolinian, and oftentimes this clicks both those categories. So that is possible. And I want to personally thank you, Bruce, for reaching out and sending me great articles and things to read of interest, and just making that initial connection. I really appreciate that.
Well, so happy to meet you. Thanks. Thanks, Chair Carl.
Likewise. Thank you.
Carl, I don't know if you can see my hand.
I see it now. Go
Okay.
ahead, Councilor Bothwell.
Thank you. I wasn't sure. Antonetta, again, I am impressed too with all of the tasks and the things that you've got on your plate that you're looking forward to help with creating a more sustainable community. And I hope that a lot of the initiatives that you're able to do in Brampton, you're able to get some success here in the town as well. In respect to the clear cutting that Bruce mentioned too, the Nixon Hall property was 262 Main Street West, and that occurred around June 24th, 2020. On July 1st, I advised the MECP of the clear cutting and asked for whether there would be some intervention. But regardless, there had been a pre-consultation agreement in place with the developer to have an arborist report done just prior to that June 24th clear cutting, and it happened irregardless of the pre-consultation agreement being in place, which required basically a tree preservation plan and an arborist report, and that was disregarded, and the clear cutting took place. Knowing that there are now a number of butternuts on that property that are an endangered species, there is a potential that a number of them were destroyed in that process. So anything we can do, and I'm not necessarily looking at a private tree bylaw, but I'm looking at when something like that happens, other municipalities have put in place penalties for developers who take those steps. When a pre-consultation agreement is in place and they violate that, there's actually penalties put within the pre-consultation agreement that says if you go ahead and clear cut or whatever, you will be fined so much money. I think Fort Erie has it, and I can share that with you. There's a couple of municipalities that have strengthened their pre-consultation agreements to make it very clear that if you talk to us about developing a property and we tell you you need to, which is a mandatory condition of a tree preservation plan for pretty well every development, that if you go ahead and do something like that, that you will be penalized. And I think we really, if we can put that in place ASAP. I know the region has the MOU with the municipal planners where they meet regularly to talk about the content of your pre-consultation agreements and a number of other improvements that you guys are working on. And it sounds like that's part of your plan anyway, but I think that that is one tool that we can use immediately to try to strengthen the applications that come forward that you are made aware of. We can right at the onset let the developer know that this isn't acceptable, and we have a penalty schedule in place, and it's going to be signed off by you. And if you go the next day and clear cut your property, that will not be acceptable. So if we can look at that, I think that's one way to bring forward some stronger teeth to not allow that to happen again, and to protect some of our, especially our endangered species that may have now been totally eradicated from the site in this particular instance. So if you can take that back and look at a way to perhaps, or whether you need it from a council motion, I mean, I'll be sure to bring something forward to say, hey, let's put some teeth into that pre-consultation agreement where it requests an arborist report and put the penalty in there. The other thing that you mentioned was you're working on a green strategy, and
sorry,
that
Councillor Bothwell, can I just address that one so
Sure.
that I then don't keep track of making sure I answer all the questions? So we actually have retained, we got a few quotes to get someone to look at our pre-con agreement to add a green lens to the entire pre-con agreement. So we've started that process. I just don't know what the outcome is yet. They're taking a look, and then they're going to give us a quote on what it would cost to revamp the pre-con with a green lens and some other improvements that need to happen to our pre-con form. I can certainly put that forward to the consultants if they haven't already sort of costed that out for us, and then I can circle back. But either way, if they can't do it, happy to proactively do that ourselves. We're just having all of the pre-con forms looked at to be revamped and redone to protect the town's interest and strengthen as many areas as we can through the pre-con forms and agreements.
I think that's great. I'm gathering you're working with the region and other municipalities on looking at best practices for pre-con agreements to make sure that, you know, there's some consistency in what you guys are putting in. Now, mind you, we have more higher development growth here, tall buildings, Welland or whatever. Some of the smaller communities like Waynfleet or whatever may not have 8 and 12 and 15-story apartment buildings. So we would have unique requirements, and our official plan does say that a pre-con can ask for certain things, but other studies as required or needed. So we've always got the ability to add things that may be unique to Grimsby, or maybe especially with the high density buildings, and the GO Train secondary plan has a number of things in there that respect those type of that high density, like the wind studies and a little bit more. Now we know we need to put the bird friendly, and I understand you're already speaking to the FLAP and you're liaising with them as to how to incorporate some of the FLAP initiatives, fatal light awareness program, which is a bird friendly kind of initiative to protect especially the migratory birds that we have that are coming through this very, very high profile area in Grimsby with the escarpment. So I appreciate your working on that. It might be helpful if you could provide the Green Committee with what that pre-consultation currently looks like, the template, just to give us an idea of what type of studies you may currently ask from a developer. And if there's a way we could contribute to that, you're talking about the green strategy lens, I think it would be helpful for us just to know what kinds of things you will be asking of developers, and perhaps you know, we can just have an overview of that as well, or not and contribute to that as it's being developed, because once it's in place, we can't go back and say, oh, hey, we should have maybe have thought of this. I know it is your role to develop that pre-consultation agreement, but it is part of the official plan as well. And you've asked us to help with that green lens with the official plan. And I think it does tie well into the pre-consultation agreement. So if there's a way to somehow just let us know how the template's going, and you know, I hear you're saying a consultant's going to help you with that, but if there's a way that we can have that green strategy lens also looked at this stage, because once it's done, right? And it'd be helpful maybe to have that a little bit of input from the committee. Does that sound like that's a possibility?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it does sound like it's a possibility, but as you also mentioned, Councillor Bothwell, you can always add to a pre-con form studies as we require. So I'll give you another example that's not green, but we're noticing is something that's needed is a community facilities assessment. So what other community facilities does the town need as we continue to grow? And that's not something we've historically asked as part of pre-con. So we're putting the onus on the developer to start to say, what does this community need in terms of early on daycare centers or different things like that? And that is something that we can put on the developers. We just haven't done that before. So we've already started to look into introducing that as part of their submissions. So we're looking at it from so many angles. And I'm happy to bring, whatever is relevant back to the committee, whether it's through the OP or provide an update on how the green strategy is going.
I think it'd be great if you could feed back to us how your terms of reference for that green strategy is being put together. I think it'd be great for us to have a look at that. And also, if you're going to ask that consultant about tightening up our tree, the requirements for the arborist report in the pre-development consultation and a penalty system for violations, I think that would be really important to come back to this committee as well to know how you're moving forward with that, because it's a very strong step we can take now that's addressing the community's outrage at these things happening very, very frequently. And I think that other communities have addressed it because they've seen it as well. And anything we can do to send the strong message that you can't buy a property, clear cut it, and then come and say, oh, now we'll look at a tree preservation strategy. So I'd appreciate anything you can do there to keep the Green Committee informed as to how you're progressing on that. Thank you very much, Antonetta.
Do we have any other questions? Anyone else? Henry.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you, Antonietta. A great presentation, by the way. We're very fortunate to have someone with your sustainability background in such a pivotal role. Quick question. I've heard a couple people say that, since we're Grimsby, we have a little bit of leeway to add or to ask for things a little over and above what's the bare minimum as it pertains to development or even maybe the building code. Is there a way, or do you see that we might find a way to require developers to maintain a certain energy intensity per square foot or a greenhouse gas footprint as they build? And maybe we become that community where we say, you can build here, but we're not going to tell you to do geothermal, but we're going to steer you in that direction by telling you can't exceed this certain greenhouse gas emissions or a certain energy intensity.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I was involved in the beginning of that conversation with Build, basically the people who represent the development industry. And what we were trying to tell them is that not only is this going to be a necessary part of the future, but there is a demand from the consumer base that want their developments and homes to have a better energy intensity. So I don't think that Grimsby's there yet, but I'm hoping that the official plan, and if we can really get these sustainable community development guidelines, we can build them into that piece. So if I can maybe just, if the committee will indulge me, I can talk a little bit about those sustainable community development guidelines talk about the built environment. So the mix and diversity of land uses, walkability, cultural heritage gets points, and contributions towards the economy. And then there's like your street network, your block design, active transportation, if it's transit supportive density, and then even to the very point of like your pedestrian supportive design. So are we making walkability as easy as a choice as, let's say, taking your car? And then you look at the natural heritage system, parks, agriculture, urban agriculture, your forest canopy, as this committee is so diligently working on. And then there's your energy use, water use and management, stormwater management, I mentioned several times, how you deal with material resources and solid waste, the air quality, even the lighting. And then there's your green buildings and your green sites. In fact, this sustainable community development guideline is so comprehensive. You know, I know a lot of municipalities prefer it to lead because it is looking at all developments from every aspect of it. And I think that that's why I'm really passionate about this kind of piece. And because it has a scoring system, then you're holding the developers very accountable to that. In terms of pushing the envelope, I'm willing to push it. So let's see what we can do. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I think we'll move along. And Antoinette, I want to thank you for your presentation and the time you've taken out this evening. I know it's very inconvenient to have meetings at this time of the day.
It's my third late meeting this week, and it's ending the earliest, so I'm actually pretty happy.
Well, I know you had a long meeting last night.
We did, yeah. Well, thank you for having me through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the committee for having me. And Sarah and I are working in concert on a number of initiatives, you know, that we've mentioned tonight and other ones as well. And happy to return to the committee as appropriate or to provide updates occasionally.
Okay, thank you very much. I think
Thank
we'll move on.
Thanks, Antonella.
I have a resolution here, which I have to go through. I'm just going to read it the way it is. Resolved that the information with respect to the discussion presentation with the Director of Planning, Building, and Bylaw be received by the Advisory Committee. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bothwell, seconded by Bruce McKenzie. All in favor? That carries. Okay. Now we turn to tree planting, and we had scheduled Steve Gillis from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority to appear before us today. And unfortunately, he was unable to attend. He did send an email, and I think, Bruce, you were going to give us a bit of a rundown. He was dealing with the tree planting program in St. Catharines. And I think we were interested in what they were doing in St. Catharines. And I think he was also involved in a grant program. So maybe, and I read the details of the grant program, and I see it's too late for us to apply. So I guess you can talk about other things, Bruce. I'll just turn it over to you.
Well, thanks very much, Carl. And on behalf of Steve, who couldn't be with us tonight, he did provide Carl and I with a report about how discussions have taken place so far. And Olivia, glad to see you here with us tonight. I'm hoping that should I lead the committee astray or leave out something or misspeak, that you can put me back on the straight and narrow path. Thank you. I'll just make a comment about the November 15th deadline. That is for one type program that's generally geared, as I understand, to private properties. But the town is working with the Conservation Authority on a number of initiatives. The first one that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, the Conservation Authority is working in tandem with the town of Grimsby on restoration of the mouth of the 40 Creek area. And that's separate from the program that I'm speaking about tonight. The Conservation Authority has reached out to many of the municipalities in its Niagara watershed to help them with restoration projects on town-owned land. And Steve has met with Olivia to discuss potential projects. And two of them that they're looking at are Centennial Park and at the Elizabeth Street pump house. And the town has, and these applications, when they come in, they're scored against other applications that come in. And as budgets allow, as these applications meet priority scoring, they're scored. And then as budgets allow, the programs get finalized, or the projects get finalized for the funding, much as what I think the town has done recently with the community initiatives funding project. So the restoration staff meet with the town and come up with a project design, planting plan, and budget implementation. And hopefully these projects can tie themselves in or lead into community planting events. And some of the projects also are more than just tree planting. Could be creek rehabilitation or shrub planting. And there's been a number of those taken place on private properties. And recently, there's been a tree planting project at the Cherry Road Park in St. Catharines. And I think the projects that Olivia has been discussing with Steve are parallel to that type of project that took place in St. Catharines. So what does the Conservation Authority do? It provides advice, provides physical hand-on work, especially in terms of sort of supervision and guidance of that, and also assists with the funding of those projects, and also assists with the fundraising. The city of St. Catharines, for their project, was successful in receiving funds from the TD Tree Days. I know the town of Grimsby has been successful at projects like that too, because I've been at a number of tree planting events at Southward Park, and those were sponsored by TD. Steve mentions that they're also wish to work with the town GIS staff to develop a layer, or what they call a GIS layer. That's a fancy word in my world for a map showing all the town-owned properties. But these maps on the GIS are important because not only does it show the town-owned properties, but it shows all the other things that are going on around that property, or in or through that property. So that's in a nutshell where we are, I think, now with the town. So the Conservation Authority and the town are in discussion and looking at two projects specifically, again, Centennial Park and the Elizabeth Street pump house. And I would ask Olivia, if there's something I've missed, if you could fill in the blanks, please.
Yeah, thank you. We did submit 2 applications for the November 15th deadline. So that was for Centennial and the 40 Mile Creek, but they were just high-level applications. So we've just kind of been working with a few members of the MPCA to kind of develop those. And if we are successful, we can kind of move those further and kind of look for input from there.
Thank you. And Olivia, through you, Chair Carl, because I know the 40 Mile Creek project has been, I think Sarah, discussion started in the summer, was it?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we still waiting for word as to whether that project has to be awarded, or is there a certain confidence level that that project is going to go ahead?
I mean, I think the support and interest in terms of how it aligns to NPCA's goals is very promising. So we are still waiting, but the impressions that I've gotten from those conversations is that I think what we've submitted is quite favorable and again, aligns very well to what they're doing. So we feel quite hopeful that there's a really good opportunity there. And I do want to thank you, Bruce, because you helped make that introduction too. And I just think it's important for the committee to know that we haven't always maybe reach the potential of partnership that we could with NPCA. So even just having these conversations and having their support through some of these pieces is really tremendous. And I think it's going to lead to some great things. So some exciting opportunities, and hopefully it starts with this particular project, which potentially we can involve some of you in as well, which would be a lot of fun.
Well, through you, Chair Carl, thank you, Sarah. And this is all coming across at a very good time, because what you might not know is that the Conservation Authority previously had suspended the land restoration work, and the present board has rebirthed and reprioritized that that work program. And so the staff are working hard to reach out to the municipal partners. So the timing, your timing was very good. And I'm hoping that it gives you what the results you're looking for. Thanks. That's my report, Chair Carl.
Thank you very much, Bruce, for that report. I have a question. Is there a program for next year? The reason I was interested in it and why I'm disappointed that Steve didn't appear before the committee last month or the month before was that I was interested in making an application for either, I don't know if it's this program or the 2 billion tree project. I was interested in doing some planning on my private property. Do you know if there's a program for next year? Do you know if this 2 billion tree project update, is that what you just gave us, or?
I can take a stab if it's okay, Bruce, and you can fill in the gaps. I don't know for sure if there'll be future year projects. I suspect it's something they would look to, and Bruce might speak to that better. But you may want to, the 2 billion trees potentially could be something, because I know for sure if that were to lead to success, and we did receive some large sums of trees in Niagara, I know from what I saw, at least private properties would qualify. So there might be some opportunities that come up, and if we know that those are out there, then we can certainly watch for them as well. Bruce, I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of future years. I don't entirely know, but I kind of got the impression that maybe they were looking to continue it, depending on, I'm sure, success and funding.
Well, yes, Sarah, thanks. And through you, Chair Carl, the Conservation Authority has just approved in our September board meeting our new strategic plan. And this initiative is one of the foundation, is very important to our strategic plan. So it's going to continue on. In the email that Steve sent to you and I, there was an attachment for the restoration program guidelines. And I can circulate that to Sarah as well, so that she can send it out to the committee members, so that everybody who owns private lands and or may know somebody who has private lands that may be interested in partaking in this restoration program can look at it, because this program is for private and public landowners. There are some restrictions in terms of the size of the properties and each project is evaluated. So I invite you, Chair Carl to look at that program guidelines, and most importantly, is to reach out to Steve on a one-on-one basis, because I always find that the best strategy, and say, okay, I've got a 2-hectare property, half of it's in meadow that I would like to restore or with tree planting, and that can start a low level or an easy conversation as to whether your project or property qualifies. And then Steve or the other staff, Stu, in part of that conversation, and say, well, you might not be able to do this, but there are other things that you might consider doing on your property, because there's, I'll just list off very quickly 8 general categories. There's livestock restrictions and crossings, conservation farm practices, tree planting, woodland restoration, in-stream riparian habitat restoration, wetland restoration, upland habitat restoration, nutrient management, and cover crops. Now, some of those are specifically designed for the agricultural community, but the other ones are designed for agricultural members and or private landowners who are not in agriculture. And each one of those 8 categories, there's sort of subcategories that staff can point you in a direction that would fit your desires and fit your budget and expectations, because the Conservation Authority will fund up to 75% of the projects if they meet the criteria. So I hope that answers your question, Chair Carl.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, I actually read that, but anyways, I will talk to, as you suggest, I'll talk directly to Steve and see. I think there's a provincial program and an NPCA program, and maybe I'm getting the 2 programs confused. So I won't.
I totally understand that, because there are a number of programs that are managed by different agencies. Fortunately, I think the programs that are dealt with by the local conservation authority, those are the easiest ones to tap into. Applications are simpler, and you can talk to the staff people right from the get-go. So good luck.
Okay, let's move on then. The next item is entitled Tree Planting Project Update and Next Steps. I think this relates to the options that we were presented at our last meeting by Olivia, and we picked option number 3. And the reason I wanted it on the agenda was we have no record of, or at least I don't have one, of Olivia's presentation. And I think there was some work that we had to do to work with the community, and I just didn't want to lose track of it. So I wondered if Olivia could give us a brief update on it, and maybe send us the slides or the presentation she made at our last meeting, so that we don't forget about it. It's easy to pass resolutions. It's more difficult to do something. So Olivia, can you help me?
Yeah, from my understanding, the next steps following the last meeting was I was going to explore kind of what the Seedling program could look like, and then come to this meeting and kind of share what the proposed idea is. So I've actually prepared a presentation. Should be quick, but I'll just share my screen.
Okay, good.
Just before Olivia does it, if I may just interrupt, just to go back to the 2 billion trees, I did put it on there as well, just so that, because I've had a few questions about it. It is still sort of an option that is out there. My understanding is because of the federal election, the project and sort of the stage they were at in terms of reviewing people's proposals submitted was put on hold. But MPCA did share an update with us that they are still reviewing them, and it is still hopefully something that will proceed at some point. We don't know for sure if they will select us, but I just wanted to give that update because I was asked by a few people. So sorry, go ahead, Olivia.
Okay. All right. So kind of briefly today, I'm just going to talk about kind of the proposal for the program. So that includes the overview and timeline. And then I just put a little slide in there for kind of a discussion, some key decisions, and then any questions that anyone has. If we are able to come to a decision and everyone agrees this is the right approach, I thought we could kind of do a quick walk through the species options. And then in the meantime, I could create a survey with all those options or send out the material so everyone can look them over, and then we can make a decision on those items in December. So again, just a high level overview. So this legacy seedling program by the Grimsby Green Committee would have 32 Carolinian species seedlings. I'm picturing it kind of as a first come, first serve registration for the seedlings, and it would target private residents. So ideally they would be planting the trees in their yard in Grimsby, and then the date that we're kind of aiming for is to kind of tag on with any Earth Day celebrations. So the first item is what? The image, I kind of just made a mock-up of what the seedlings would look like when we're handing them out. So the first thing is the promotional items. So I mentioned previously that the seedling package is from Pine Needle Farms. So this would include seedling species that the committee is able to choose. The seedlings would come in a root system in a protective plastic bag, and then a burlap bag, ribbon, and then you also have the option to add planting instructions and then also a logo if you wanted to on the seedling. So in total, there would be 325 seedlings. So that's priced at $2.90 each. So amounts and species selection. I kind of think it might be a good idea for each property address to be limited to one seedling. And I mentioned that the species selection is kind of dependent. You could kind of customize this the way you want to. So you could make it as simple with the registration or a little more complex, having applicants kind of put their yard conditions so we can kind of choose what species would be best and have the best chance of surviving. And I think it would be good to kind of do seedlings that are all Carolinian. So why and how? So just a reminder, this program was created to kind of keep in mind that the Grimsby Green Committee is aiming to invest in tree planting and stewardship on the private land to help enhance and expand Grimsby's urban forests and to improve the health of the local environment. And then this program will create a stewardship opportunity to assist with the protection and preservation of Grimsby's ecosystem. So I mentioned a first come, first served basis. So how I picture it working is residents of Grimsby can apply through an application using some kind of online form system. So that could be through Let's Talk or maybe the town website. And the form can be created as specific or general as the committee would like. So for example, if you wanted to keep it simple, it could just be name, contact information, and address. Or if you wanted it to be a bit more complex, you could have like a planting map, maintenance plan, and then the yard conditions. So who, where, and when. So I've mentioned a few times that this would be for private Grimsby resident owners. And then residents must agree to plant and maintain the tree in private property in Grimsby. And ideally in their own yards. So proof of Grimsby residency could be required. And then trees cannot be planted on boulevards, along streets, or in town parks. So for the tree event, I pictured it kind of being a pickup. So those successful in receiving a seedling will receive a follow-up email with pickup instructions and a specific time slot at the select location. And then I was thinking that if some trees are not claimed, they can also be handed out at whatever the Earth Day event is later in the evening, just so we make sure that they're all going to a home. So why this approach? So the seedlings arrive ready to hand out with specific planting instructions. So the company will prepare the seedlings, which I think helps ensure the chances of survival. The planting instructions can be added directly to the seedlings so that when they are going to plant it, residents can just refer to that. And then we can also arrange to do pickup or shipping. And this on the website, it just mentions that they recommend doing this the week of the event just to make sure that everything stays fresh. With this also, I think it's good to schedule the handout and sign up process because this reduces the risk of people taking seedlings and not planting them. If we were just kind of giving them away, you don't necessarily know that they are going to plant them because they just might get forgotten about. And then this is also an opportunity to provide assistance from a committee member to kind of help assist with the program. So address would be a requirement, and I think this would just make it really simple for creating that GIS layer. And then I also thought that this could be a good way to kind of get involved with the Grimsby 22 events by raising awareness of the program prior to the application opening. I also think that communications and branding could really come into play here. So the package allows the opportunity to include a logo. So now that you've decided your Grimsby Green logo, you could have that directly on the seedling. And I just think it's a great way to get some outreach into the community, and it's a good news story. And then the Grimsby Green can work together to develop the tags that are accurate and informative. So that was a lot there. So I just wanted to take a breather and see if there's any questions, and then see if everyone's kind of in agreement with this approach.
Okay, I'll kick it off. How did we arrive at 325 seedlings?
So 325 is just because of this comes with the package. So it's I think it's called the ready to hand out package. So rather than just getting the seedlings and then kind of having to put all the items together with the branding, and then also you would need the plastic bag, I think it just kind of cuts down on the work that's going to be going with this program. But there are other opportunities that we can explore as well.
Ryan.
Quick question there for the price that Town of Grimsby will be covering that, right? Or would we be expecting the residents to pay that $2.90 each?
Yeah, it's included in the budget, correct, Sarah? Yeah.
Yes, that is a figure that we think we can manage within our budget through some of the resources we have for next year. So, you know, that's sort of where that number came from as well, Carl, is what we thought we could work with the budget that we have.
Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair. My question, I guess, first is about we're taking people's addresses, and can we do like a follow-up as volunteers from the committee? Like, so say we give out 325 seedlings and we do get 325 addresses, and we could split those up and we could take, you know, 30 or 40 homes, and we could go and deliver like maybe a flyer saying, you know, last year we gave you a seedling. Did you plant it? Is it growing? Can we see it? Type of thing. Can we incorporate something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of the nice thing about this program is you can really make it whatever you want to. There's lots of opportunities to kind of involve the community, and I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. And then my other question is about 325 trees at about $3 a piece is around $1,000. And I know our other options with like the tree grants that we were going to do, I think it was nearer to $3,000. So is there a reason why the budget is smaller for this than it was for the tree grant program option that we didn't choose?
I believe from my understanding is that this kind of includes some of the other initiatives that the committee is planning on doing. Sarah, I might need you to clarify on that one.
Yeah, that's correct, Olivia. So I estimate there'll be about a $3,000, window that we can use for these types of initiatives. So, you could spend it all in one, but assuming that you're going to want to do some work with the awards or maybe some other activities, it just leaves you some wiggle room. You could do more in this particular initiative, but thinking that maybe you want to do more than one thing, I don't know if you want to put all of your dollars in one basket, if I may say it that way, but that's certainly something the committee can discuss. I mean, I think too, you want to be a bit careful with how many you go with until you know the success. So, you know, the temptation might be to do double that, but you know, maybe this is a good start to see what the uptake is and determine what that is, and then decide if you scale up or scale down if you were to repeat the program. And that might again be something you'd want to do, is do this again in future years. So we were trying to pick a number that we thought was reasonable, suggesting it to the committee, but certainly the committee can weigh in on that one. But I think we do want to just consider, you know, you want to make sure they all get well placed and you can build excitement. And is it something you want? Just some thoughts.
Yeah, I think, and thank you, Sarah. I think that one thing I like is that we give the trees or the saplings out, seedlings out to people who want them. And like we make some kind of, they have to commit. So like if you're just handing them out, like everybody, a tree for everyone, everyone will take them because it's just kind of human nature. But if you make them come and give their address, come and give their email address, like then it's only the people who really want them that'll spend the 3 minutes of time or however long it takes to do that. And the people who are just kind of taking the free swag or whatever from the festival just kind of walk on by. So I think that's good. I wonder if when we do it, if we could get like a computer set up or a tablet set up where people could enter their email addresses, because a lot of times we write down our phone number and email address and you can't read the writing and we get the emails wrong. And if we had a tablet where someone would come and say, hey, enter your email address, and they would plug it in, and then we have a valid email for that person. And yeah, that's just a pet peeve. I sometimes have to try and get my email address and you can't tell if it's an underscore or a dash or what the letters are.
If I may just respond to that, Councillor, we could certainly do that. Anytime we take somebody's email address, we want to be very clear with them what we're taking it for and how we would utilize that. So we would just want to make sure there's consent, but that's all doable and would be an excellent way to maybe track the success of the program. And I think if we sort of pitch this too as a 2022 year tree celebration tree, I think there will be some good interest in the community for it. So those are all things we can do.
Okay, and then the one other question I have is with our GIS, we were gonna like kind of track trees, and if people do buy into this and they get a tree and then they plant it, and then if they call us or contact us back, can they put that tree on our GIS, and can we make that like an incentive to call us back? Is that it's kind of like naming a star, right? Like you're like, okay, I planted the tree here and I want to dedicate it to like you know, my first girlfriend from high school or whatever. And if hopefully they're still in high school, but do we have currently like a layer where we can mark trees, and can we name those trees? And then if we have that, can we incorporate it into this so that people who do plant their seedlings can notify us that they've been planted and can name them?
Yeah, I think that's possible. We do have currently we have a few tree layers, but you are able to kind of name them and then add any notes to it. And I've talked to the GIS, some people who work on GIS for the town, and they said that we could even make it public information. So we could add something to the website and anyone could go on, click a tree, see who planted that, when they planted it, and any details we wanted to include.
Yeah, that would be cool, like for a birthday gift or an anniversary gift or something for somebody, like the naming a star. Mm-hmm. You could name a tree. Anyhow, thank you very much.
Okay, I have Aaron next.
Sure, thank you. I had two questions. One, just to Dave's point, would we be taking all their information and application at the point of picking up the tree, or would it be something like a pre-approval where you'd put something out that they'd apply ahead of time, and should they be approved, then they'd show up to pick up the tree, I feel like that would put even more ownership on actually putting effort into the application and then driving to collect the tree and then take it home, and they're less likely to just toss it in their garage and not put it in the ground type of thing. So just a suggestion that maybe we could do something ahead of the actual event of giving out the trees. That way there's a little bit more ownership there. And then my second question, you mentioned the Carolinian species. Would there be multiple species like choice? Would the residents or applicants have an option as to which tree they pick, or available?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted
Okay.
to share this slide, but this is kind of the Carolinian or some native species that I just wanted to include just to show you there's a lot of options. So
would each person get to choose?
Yeah, that's, it's really, that's how I'm picturing it. But it's really up to the committee to decide. But each species, I think with the order, it's a minimum of 20 per seedling. So we could either choose how many we want to get of each ahead of time and then kind of make that aware to people who are applying. And then, like I said, it's a first come, first serve. Or if you wanted to do pre-orders and then have the drop off a few months later, we can also probably arrange to do that as well.
I like the idea that there'd be a mixture and we wouldn't just be putting out one species. And I also like the idea that the residents have some kind of choice, maybe not all of these choices, but maybe we as a committee narrow it down to like 5 or 6 or whatnot, just to make it so that we're ordering in bulk, like you said, with the 20 minimum for each. And then from there, let it be a first come, first serve, and in terms, or like the residents puts in their first, second, and third choice, and they might get one of those 3 choices type of idea, just to keep it simple. But I like the more that you give in terms of ownership and making it more, like they're more likely to actually go pick it up, go put it in the ground, as opposed to, like Dave said, just walking by and grabbing free swag. So I think the more, but I'm a little worried about too much information, like saying, oh, provide a site plan, tell us exactly where you're putting it. I feel like that might deter people because people are very private when it comes to their properties in a lot of ways too. And I don't think that we'd be asking maybe too much to say, tell us specifically where you're going to put it in the ground in order to gain our approval type of thing. So that part I just would be weary about myself.
Okay,
Just
I had
comment on that is I would say that would be optional. Someone, if they want to, once they plant it, could optionally call us and say, look, this is where I planted it and this is what I want to name it.
Oh yeah, I agree. I meant like before, as a part of the application process, telling the town this is where I plan to put it in order for us to approve the spot. But afterwards, for sure, if people want to optionally name it and put it on there, I think that's an awesome idea, especially if you can, like, on the GIS layer, tag it and put, like you said, happy birthday to my wife or whatever, and then you can, that'd be really cool. But I think in the terms of the application, I feel like that might be asking too much information on the front end.
Yeah, I agree.
I had Councillor Bothwell's hand was up, but I don't see it anymore. Is she still with us?
Thanks, Carl. That was true. I took it down because Aaron actually addressed a lot of my questions, so I appreciate that. And I like the idea that she offered as well, that we have a number of multiple species. I don't think all of them here. We might need to narrow it down, considering we only have 329, like if they're in blocks of 20. So I don't know if Olivia, you want us to narrow it down, or we're going to be actually leaving this full complement of species available.
Yeah, so kind of how I was picturing this going is just kind of giving an overview of what is available, and then kind of I could send it out after this meeting for everyone to kind of think about, and then maybe a decision could be made at the next meeting.
Okay, the next hand up was Sarah, I guess.
I just wanted to say that I think as we narrow it down, we might want to look as well at some different, planting environments, right? Certain trees might be better suited to different environments. And I think this is where, again, as a committee, we could come up with a little bit of a fact sheet that we could then have on our website too, and has some lasting value to say, hey, if you're planting a tree, here's a couple of species to consider. Here's the conditions that they thrive best in. And again, it's just sort of encouraging that message, and it extends its reach even beyond the program, because we can continue sharing that information beyond. So I think it's just another way to leverage that further and decide on some of those varieties. And, Olivia, maybe you could even kick that off a bit, and the committee could all chime in on, selecting their top 6 or whatever the number is.
Okay, and the next hand up was Bruce. Dave, your hand is still up. You want to take it down, or do you want to talk again? Bruce?
Thanks, Carl. Through you to Olivia on the species. I appreciate this list. I would like to recommend that black locust be removed and be replaced with white pine.
Okay, yeah, that's no problem. I can update that on the list.
Thank you.
Bruce, sorry, for us less knowledgeable at trees, could you explain why maybe?
Black locust is not native to Ontario, and it's a species of that the Ontario Invasive Species Council is concerned about. And white pine is the provincial tree of Ontario, and white pine, for a number of reasons, has difficulty in regenerating in our natural lands. So one of the best ways to have white pines continue on into the future in our area is by planting. Thank you. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I appreciate it.
Okay, I don't see any more hands. So my only comment would be, I think 325 is not enough. It's a drop in the bucket. Can we do some fundraising, or like is the next size 650? Is that like, did they come in batches of 325? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so I can actually, I don't know off the top of my head, but on the website, they kind of have a price breakdown, but the more you order, the cheaper it gets. Sarah and I previously had talked about if the committee was interested, maybe they could start to explore opportunities for sponsorship. So if you wanted to get some local businesses involved, maybe some additional funding could be received that way.
Just my own personal opinion. I think we should strive for a 650, and if necessary, we'll do some fundraising. I mean, you're thinking it's $1,000, I think is what you said the cost would be. So do we have to raise $1,000 for the extra 325?
I can look at the pricing of what it would cost for 650, but it may be a little less than 1,000, just because the more you buy, the cheaper it usually is.
Okay, I have two hands up. Bruce, is your hand up new, or is it an old hand?
Well, this time I put up my right hand. This is the new hand. I would, Carl, I certainly applaud your idea of going to a bigger number. I also heard Sarah speak about this is the beginning of the program, to keep it smaller so that it is manageable, and then measure its success. I would suggest also that if you do increase the number in pertaining to staff workload, I think it would be cumbersome upon staff to keep track of things like addresses and follow-ups, where you may accomplish the same by using the town's website or the Facebook page, simply for people to show pictures of the family planting trees. Give them that opportunity for that media connection, and then maybe take a small sample size, say 5% of your people who are involved, and follow up with them with a survey during the year. And then I think that sample size, 5 or 10%, that's still a lot of work for staff. And then from that sample size, or that sample, you could get an idea as to the success of the program. You know, did you plant your tree? Did it live? Will you be planting more trees? It can be that, or would you like to plant more trees? It could be that simple, because I don't think you can follow 325 participants. That will, the work involved, I'd rather see that time and energy reinvested in green initiatives or more trees. Thanks very much, Chair Carl.
Sarah.
Yeah, one other suggestion I was going to make, and thanks for that, Bruce, is, you know, I appreciate the ambition as well, Carl, for 600. I think it's just, that's 600 homes we have to reach, and it is sometimes hard to gauge the initial uptake. One thing you could also consider is that, you know, it doesn't have to be a one and done. If you did the first round of the 325 or whatever the number was, and you found the uptake was much greater, you know, there's nothing to say you couldn't do another round maybe in the fall if budget or dollars could, you know, permitted to do that. And just that way, you know, you're not going to be in a situation where maybe you over ordered significantly because you just don't entirely know the uptake. So that'd be the only caution I would throw out there, and just that it doesn't have to be a one and done necessarily either. So.
Well, I thought it was the committee that was doing the work, but I guess not. So I didn't think. I thought the most embarrassing thing would be if we had 1,000 people or homes apply and we could only accommodate 325. I thought it would be embarrassing. But that's only me. Aaron.
I was just going to comment on something Bruce said about the pictures and the social media part of it. I really like that idea. One of the things we could do on the tag that explains the planting instructions and care instructions. We could also create a hashtag and say like, and put right on it to tweet or to whatever, Facebook, Instagram, your pictures of you planting the tree with this hashtag. And that way, all that we can gather that information that way. And we'd have all the photos of the families doing the plantings by just searching that hashtag. So just a thought for that you know, social media piece, that part. Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments? Olivia.
Carl, I said one other thought, and I'm way off of the tree program now, but I'm still on the tree program, but what if we planted the trees? What if, like, we got volunteers from the committee or from the high schools, and what if we took a wagon with like 50 trees in it and we walked around the neighborhood and knocked on doors and said, hey, would you mind if we planted one of these trees? We have 6 different varieties. Do you like them? We bring a tiny shovel, we dig a small hole. We say it would live best in the full sun. We plant it, and then we say, hey, here's our card. You can name the tree if you want on our website. And I'm sure like 3 volunteers could plant 50 trees on a Saturday afternoon in a neighborhood. And like you would have so much higher success rate rather than like handing them out in the parking lot.
I think, Councillor Sharp, I think that's a liability issue for the town, and I don't think we can go on private property and do that.
You'd knock on doors and you'd ask people if you could come on.
Sarah, I don't think.
Well, but it's just,
maybe Sarah knows.
If you're just interrupting me, then you can wait till I'm done. Thanks. So this is, I mean, there is probably a scant chance of success with some of these trees because I mean, it's really quite easy to plant a small sapling, but it's much more difficult when you have it like you're already downtown, you got to go home, you have to get into your shed, take out your shovel, pick a spot, plant it. But if you have like a group of 3 people who are shovels in hand, like you could plant thousands of trees. How many did we plant at Southwood Park, Sarah? Like, and they do it in a few hours, and that would be something that would be worth considering. I don't know if they're volunteers and if they're knocking on doors and if the property owners are saying, hey, welcome to my home. Sure, you can plant a white pine tree in my backyard. I don't know if we get into an insurance issue or not, but I know I could knock on my neighbor's door and I don't have to do this as part of, but I could go to the neighbors and say, hey, guys, would you let me plant some of these little tiny saplings? And
Okay,
thanks.
uh,
Sorry, I knew that's not part of our program. I'm just thinking out loud. Thank you.
I assume that someone's taken notes and that we're going to discuss this again in December and that we're not making any decisions today. So I'm going to move on to the next person that had their hand up, which is Erin.
Thanks. I just wanted to respectfully disagree, Dave, only because of my experience with planting trees, multiple trees, many trees on school properties as a part of my job. The more ownership that, in my case, students or teachers or staff members took in terms of planting the tree, the higher success rate of it lasting, because they took pride and that they were the ones who put it in, that they chose the spot, they chose the type of tree, they put this effort in, that they dug the hole themselves, they took photos, they put it up on their social media, they promoted their green initiatives and creating an outdoor green learning space, that type of idea, as opposed to when I just hire a contractor to go in and plant trees. They actually have a lot less chance of succeeding because no one's taking ownership of it at that site. So I feel like if you just walked up to a house and said, here, you want to plant a tree, they'd probably say, sure, yeah, but that tree has a less likely chance of surviving. Yeah, it was easier for the owner at the time of putting it in, but it's less likely they're going to take ownership and pride over keeping that tree alive. So that's just my personal experience with my role in my professional life. But I like the idea and the initiative of wanting to get the trees out there, but I just don't know that it actually would be more successful that way.
All right. Well, you take 50 trees and do it your way, and I'll take 50 trees and do it my way, and we'll see who gets more trees to survive.
That's totally fair. Let's do it.
Thanks.
Okay, I don't see any more hands up. So Olivia, maybe we can, we didn't look at this slide before. Do you want to talk about this slide and then go back to the slide on which you had the decisions that we had to make?
Yeah,
I know we're not
Sarah,
making.
did you have your hand up?
No, I did briefly, and I think Carl's kind of leading us there anyways, is, what would maybe help for tonight is at least just get a consensus from the committee that we like the direction that this is going in, so that for the next meeting or January, we could sort of advance it further to actually be able to implement it come April. We can still work on finalizing a few of these details and working out a few of the specifics, but at least know we're in a direction that's supported by the group. I think we are, but maybe just make sure that is the case.
So Olivia, you have on here the questions and the decisions that have to be made in December. And I think to help us then, if you could send us a copy of these slides, and also if anybody kept notes, those notes would lead us to the things that we have to talk about at the next meeting. We can think about it in the next 4 weeks and make those decisions at that time. My own thoughts in terms of where we're heading, I think we're heading in the right direction, although I don't agree that, I don't think it's ambitious enough. But that's just me, so you can all, okay, Bruce, you got your hand up.
You're on mute, Bruce.
I can see your lips move, but you can't hear you. Did we come to a decision, Chair Carl, about whether we're having a December meeting or not?
Well, yeah, I guess that was the last item on the agenda, so maybe now we should maybe advance that.
Well,
We did previously decide we were going to have a meeting on December the 22nd. I had put it on today's agenda, I think. Next meeting, yeah, because I'm concerned that we have a quorum for that meeting. So why don't we advance that discussion right now, determine whether we're going to have enough people attending the December the 22nd meeting.
okay. Can I have input there?
Yes.
Yeah. I can't tell you today because of COVID and because of changing family concerns, whether I'm going to be available on December 22nd. The active committee is not meeting in December. If there's any decisions that need to be made in the December meeting, it would be nice if we could make them tonight in case we can't meet in December, or whether those decisions can be held off until January. December 22nd, staff won't say this, but I think this is hard on staff for having a meeting on the 22nd of December. So that's my thoughts on that meeting.
Okay, why don't we go around the table, so to speak, and get input from everybody else. Ryan?
I'm in agreement with Bruce on that as well. Just in case some things come up getting into the holiday season, family comes out of nowhere and things change. I'm not saying myself that I won't be at that meeting, but things do come up at that time of year, just right before Christmas. So maybe any important decisions we could maybe move into January, like Bruce was saying.
Can I ask Olivia if the meeting in January is too late to make these decisions?
I think it should be okay. The minimum that they request the order goes in is 4 weeks ahead of time. So that still leaves a lot of time. Obviously, they appreciate it being a bit more in advance, but that still leaves all of February and March, and Earth Day is at the end of April. So there's lots of time. And I think that you could still do promotion of the program starting at the end of January.
Councillor Sharp, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Christmas, the holiday is late this year, so I'm working right up until the 24th, and I think I'll take the 24th off, but well, it's a Friday, and so
No,
like,
I know, it's my wife's birthday. I agree with you.
so I'm available, but like if it's, I know some staff take the holiday, but so the school holiday is actually after Christmas, so it's, I mean, sometimes the holiday starts a little bit before Christmas, but this year it doesn't. So I'm okay having the committee or not, but we do have only so much time until the spring. Things like tree planting come up, and I'm going to talk about something later in new business about maybe a garbage cleaning or cleanup initiative. And, you know, this is the kind of stuff that we can start to plan. And if there's 1 or 2 members that can't make it on that day, like, I mean, you're just missing some of the groundwork planning to like, what day are we going to do the garbage cleanup? So it's, I can make it that day, and but I'm okay if we want to postpone it too.
Councillor Bothwell, your thoughts?
Thank you, Chair Gonson. I'm either way, but I agree with sort of Bruce and Ryan that a lot of things can come up so close to Christmas, and if we don't have anything pressing or urgent on the agenda, I would suggest that we can move those things to January, but I'll leave it at the discretion of yourself and the rest of the committee. Thank you.
Aaron, your thoughts?
I'm still working right up to the 24th as well. I'm free the 22nd, but I'm good either way as well. So I'm good.
Who have I missed?
Henry.
Henry. See, he's not on my screen.
I agree with Ryan and Bruce. It's a busy time of year. For me personally, at work, we're doing a full relaunch of the campus at Mohawk. So it's going to be a busy time. I say postpone.
Okay, I think I'm in favor of having the meeting because we already went through this once and agreed we would have the meeting, and the reason was it's going to be like 2 months in between meetings. It's a long time. But I think the majority does not want to have the meeting on December the 22nd, so we'll cancel that and have it on January, whatever it is. Olivia says we're okay. We've got enough time to make these decisions and to place the order. Okay. Olivia, your hand is up.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to suggest an alternative. If we did want to make some decisions, I could create a survey with the options that the decisions needed and send it out to the committee, and then it could be approved during the January one. But just to kind of keep the ball rolling.
I like that idea. Why do we have to meet on a preset date? I like that idea. Why don't we try and see what happens? A doodle survey. Okay.
Sorry, can I cut in for 2 seconds? I did text Haley. She's available December 22nd. She's got it in her calendar, so she's available for the 22nd.
That makes it a tie.
Sorry.
I'm not going to revisit that decision because I'm sure there are people that, as Bruce says that there'll be something unexpected come up. So, but I like Olivia's idea. And Olivia, if you can send us your presentation and remind us of the decisions we have to make, maybe we can inch towards making a decision remotely, and maybe we don't even have to meet on this issue in January. Is that okay with the committee? I got one thumbs up. Okay, good enough. Time's moving on, so we have the last item under tree planting is an item, a tree planting donation. I'm not sure what that's about. Sarah, do you know what that is about?
That was Councillor Sharp's item for his weekend activity.
Councillor Sharp. Okay, Councillor Sharp.
Okay, thanks. I didn't realize that was my item on the agenda, but we did plant some trees this weekend at Southwood Park, and I had the chair, Carl Gonson, came to help, and so did Aaron and Haley and Ryan Day. And number one volunteer was our director, Sarah Sweeney. She was there right from the beginning. She dug her own hole. We had a lot of fun, and I really felt good afterwards. It was nice to get together with the committee members, like just kind of informally, and it was accomplishing. It felt good afterwards to just look and say, like, look, there we go, we've done it. And so it was fairly easy. It really wasn't that expensive, and it was fun, and I really had a great time. So thank you to the committee members who came, and I hope to do it again. And yeah, that was just a lot of fun. So if anybody else out there is interested in putting these things together, it's not very much money, and it's rewarding. So there's tree planting is a fun thing to do. So, but you can only do it in the spring or in the fall, and in some species you can't plant in the fall. You have to plant in the spring. So you need to be planning in December or January to have these meetings. And but anyhow, so thanks for the time, and thanks everyone for their help.
Okay. So I have a resolution. Resolved that the update provided with respect to the NPCA tree planting grant submission, the 2 billion trees project update, the tree planting project update and next steps, and the tree planting donation be received by the advisory committee. Do I have a mover? Moved by Aaron, a seconder, Councillor Sharp. All in favor? That carries.
Chair Carl, just wanted to discuss that motion for a second. I don't remember any discussion with the 2 billion tree planting program.
Well, the words were used once or twice. I think that's about all.
Okay.
I mean, you know, the update, it was a 0 update on that. If you want to take that out, it's fine with me. But we did mention it once or twice.
I think, Chair, I think that Sarah Sweeney did bring a brief report on that. And we did hear from a bit of an update on it from her, right? I think, Sarah, you did cover it in your discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Bothwell. I did. Yes, it was very, very brief, but I had been asked. So I just purposely put it on there as I had been asked where that program was. So just for the sake of that, for everybody again, it's simply just saying it is still on the table. It's been paused because of the federal election, and we are still hopeful that our proposal will still get heard and still be an opportunity coming forward. So it was very brief, but I just think it's important the committee knows it isn't a lost opportunity or something we've missed necessarily.
My apologies, Chair Carl, I missed that. Thank you.
Okay. And moving on then, the Grimsby Green Acknowledgement Awards. I don't think Haley is with us yet, is she, Erin?
No, I don't think she's gonna make it. I've just been texting back. I think she's just heading home now, so I don't think she's gonna make it. I'll try to give an update in lieu of Haley.
I think the important thing is selection of the logo.
Yeah, so if I'll share my screen if I can figure out how to do that. I don't normally use Zoom, we use Teams at work, but I'm gonna see if I can share the updated logos. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm. Yep, good.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. So these were, Sharon got back to us in terms of a couple of ways. I think I missed the last meeting, but I think the understanding was we liked the words from one logo and the image from one logo. So she, at our request, combined those two logos. So she did it in one way where it's down below the words or off to the side. And then she gave us different ideas of how we can use it depending on the type of merch we might want to put on. So she even gave examples of the way we would do it hollowed out with no color. If you were using a colored shirt, for example, or like in one color like this on the bag or in full color on the t-shirt. So this is sort of our idea. I don't know if there's a way for us to keep the image and words separate so we can use it either in a vertical sort of fashion or in a horizontal, I guess, fashion. So I think, I know in talking to Sarah on the weekend, there's going to be she'll have to, Sarah, you know the words better than me, but I know you'll have to talk with Sharon about how we accept her logo and how we're allowed to use it in the future. So I don't know what that will entail, but these are sort of the ideas, the mock-ups that Sharon did in response to our requests. And then she also gave us an example of a certificate and how that might look for our awards. We can change this to say recognition awards or whatever, the exact acknowledgement awards. Instead of certificate of achievement, we can say certificate of acknowledgement. But she just wanted to provide an example for us, which is awesome. I mean, less things that we now have to figure out since she did it for us, and she was very happy to do so. So that was good. So is everyone kind of happy with this? I don't know, Sarah, if we need to pick one over the other and let Sharon know, or if there's a way for us to say, yeah, we accept the image and yes, we accept the words and accept those as two separate things so we can use it as we want to. Maybe you can comment on that part.
Yeah, I mean, you could choose a particular orientation if you wanted, but having both sometimes works because sometimes depending on the type of work you're doing, you want to have sort of the wording below or wording to the side. I think the conversation Aaron and I had was, I just want to make sure we're clear, and I do believe I know the answer, but just would want to validate it nevertheless, that it is being donated, that the artwork is being donated, and that the committee is free to use it as they wish, essentially, right? And just make sure we acknowledge the donation and that we confirm that. And I'm pretty sure the answer is yes to those things, but we would just want to make sure that we do know that answer. Just as time goes on, you know, that they know where that came from, and maybe we can get a couple of the different formats as well, because it is nice to have the color version and then the single color as well, depending on, as you saw, the different types of shirt presentations you can do, or, you know, backgrounds and such. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and she was happy.
We want to reach out.
Yeah, she was happy to provide it in different file formats too. I know depending on what you're putting it on, you need different file formats. So she was happy to provide that as well. So I guess maybe the best thing is for myself, Carl, or Haley to email her back and copy you into that conversation. And then you guys can discuss that kind of stuff in terms of the donation, and so that it's very clear coming from the town itself. So maybe that's what we'll do this week. Okay, so that's for the logo. Does anyone have any other comments or critiques or anything else you want me to bring back to Sharon on our behalf?
Well, I think it was Ryan that moved the selected alternative. Ryan, are you happy? Did we lose Ryan?
Yeah, I like what Sarah was saying. I like both logos. The one where you can have the wording to the side and then underneath, because depending what it'll fit on. But yeah, I like that logo, and some of everybody else is good with it.
Okay. Dave, Councillor Sharp, I'm sorry.
Thanks to the chair. I like having both logos, and I'm really keen to keep both. And we can call them A and B or whatever, but I mean, one works a lot better on a letterhead and the other is better on a sign. And so I think we can keep both, and I think we could easily call them like A and B, and you could have A full color, A black and white, A grayscale, right? But if we need to name them all, but I think that it's great to have both and in different file formats, and so I think this is great, and thank you very much to Sharon for making this for us, and thanks to Aaron and Haley for also doing their part of that.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sure we could even ask for the word portion and the image portion to be kept separate so that we can sort of put them in whatever orientation we want. I'm sure that's okay too, but then again, that's a question, something to discuss with Sharon and with Sarah in the loop on that one, because I don't know how easy it is for us to, or the town staff to then manipulate that when we need to put it on things, but it might be easier if it's actually just the words and image, and then we put the orientation as needed, the side or in front or diagonal or whatever, right? So, okay. Any other things about the logo before I cover the other stuff?
So do we need a resolution to pick this as the logo, Peter or Sarah? Does it need to go back to council?
Peter, do you have any opinion? Oh, I see Peter coming off mute. I just wonder, is that something we would want to have an endorsement for?
Through you, Chair, I think it's probably best to provide a recommendation to council. So whatever your preferred logo is, and then we'll include that in the meeting minutes.
Okay, then can someone make a resolution that the logo as presented by Aaron Holko as described on that screen be approved? Peter, you can wordsmith it, and maybe council wants to see a graphic of it. Can somebody move that?
I'll move. Aaron, if you want to move it, I'll second it.
Aaron, moved by Aaron, seconded by Councillor Bothwell. All in favor? It carries. So Aaron, so maybe you can get on with the rest of the presentation, or
sure.
I don't know if you have decisions to make. Maybe you can comment on whether or not there are decisions to be made and whether they can wait till the January meeting or not.
There is nothing more to indecisions in terms of right now. Last week, Haley and I wrote up a brief summary for Olivia. We've just got to talk with Olivia and Sarah a little bit more next week about drafting up, we want to put up a public page at some point so that when we start our social media campaign, there'll be a link to a Grimsby Green Advisory Committee page that kind of gives a summary of our mandate, shows our new logo, maybe the picture of us planting that tree at Southward on the weekend, just like a brief one pager that will be our page for when we want to share information and to get the committee out there and introduced to the community. So Haley and I will work on that this week and get that to Olivia and Sarah so they can review it. And then at the same time, now that we have the logo, we are going to also come up with a couple social media ideas, and then again submit them to Sarah and Olivia for their input and approval, making sure it complies with all of the town's social media sort of rules and regulations, I guess. Other than that, there's nothing we need to do as a committee at this point.
Okay, so I assume one of the first things we're going to do is explain what the committee does, what our goals are, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think before the page is actually published, we'll probably bring that back to the committee to make sure everyone's in agreement with what everything says, but it's going to be high level. It'll just, we'll just sort of briefly give an idea of what we're trying to do and accomplish as a committee, what our roles are, and then sort of this is what we have to look forward to, the achievement awards, some tree planting. So just a high level introduction to our committee. Is that right, Sarah? Chime in if I've missed something.
No, I think that's great. Sort of capture what we've talked about and then gives us all the pieces to run forward. Aaron, the only thing I'm wondering is, and hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn on this, but we chatted a little bit as well with the awards, just even to allow that maybe to advance for the January meeting where we're in a spot where we can, move that forward is, does the committee want to discuss, would you be looking to accept any award or any story that comes in, or are you looking to limit the number of them, just so that you kind of have that maybe one piece outstanding so that you can develop that program further and maybe bring that to the committee in January for agreement, right?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So one thing Sarah mentioned on the weekend to us was because we hadn't really decided 100% how we were gonna. We talked about categories, and we talked about limiting it to one event as opposed to promoting a business as like this is a green business, but more like this business did this one green thing as part of their certificate would acknowledge, because we want to get away from promoting a business as being green. We want to make sure we're only focusing on that one thing they did, because they might be polluting or doing something else, maybe perhaps on the other end of things, right? And so, but we didn't really talk yet as a committee, I don't think, unless I missed this somewhere in the past, about how we were going to judge each entry coming in. So we thought to maybe avoid having to sit there and go, does this person who planted 10 trees deserve an award over this person who planted 9 trees? Instead, perhaps just saying anyone who submits at all, as long as they've done something green or something to enhance the environment in Grimsby in some way, will get a recognition certificate. And since it seems like we're staying away from monetary prizes, it would more just be a certificate, especially for the businesses. I think that's what they're looking for, something they can put on their wall and say, we were recognized for doing something good in our community. So it's up to the committee. I don't know what you guys think. If you think it should be just anyone who submits, anyone who's nominated gets a certificate, or no, we take in the nominations and we decide who gets them and who doesn't.
Anybody have any thoughts? Well, okay, my thought was we weren't going to automatically give everybody that was nominated an award, that we should screen them somehow. I don't know, we screen them down to 1 per category or more than 1 per category. I guess we have to use our judgment.
One other option is doing a hybrid where we screen them down and each person gets, like, someone wins the category and everyone else gets a certificate of recognition.
Yeah.
Right. So that way you're still getting something because you planted a tree or you installed solar panels or whatever it is that we do, but someone who's gone above and beyond and has done the most under that category gets the winning prize or whatever. It's just, we need to come up then with a committee as how we're going to do that, because we need to be transparent with the community, maybe on a high level, but we need to be transparent with the community about exactly how we're judging these applications.
Yeah, I think as part of the advertising campaign, you have to tell them what your criteria for the award is. Now, whether you give out 1 or 2 or 3, I don't think you need to make that decision until you get them.
Well, the problem is we do need to put that out before we start submitting or taking applications, so that people know what they're applying for or nominate people for.
Part.
So, and we need to do that if we're planning on having this done around the Earth Day, and we're not now meeting until January. We really needed to start this campaign in December, getting stuff out on our social media platforms and on the page, and getting this page in. Like, if we're not doing that till January, we're not going to accept the nominations till February. We have March.
And it has to go to council.
That's it. And then March for us to vet these people,
That's
and
too
then
late.
council, it's too late. So
Yeah.
we kind of have to decide. I mean, we don't have to do it in this meeting. I can put something together and I can submit it to you guys via email, and we can look at it that way if that's all right. I don't know how this works, if we have to do it in this meeting or if it can be something decided between us outside this meeting. I'm not sure, but Sarah, maybe you need to comment on that too.
The program will need to be supported by council. So we'll need to go through that process. So what I would say is if we can get to a place where in January, we're ready to submit it as a complete report and ask for that endorsement by council, then you can expedite it fairly quickly, right? So we can do a little bit of the legwork, but that sort of decision to proceed would ultimately need to come through as a report.
Okay. Can I ask you guys now then, since we're not meeting till January, what you guys are in support of doing, a hybrid where we have one award winner per category and then the rest get a recognition certificate, or everyone just gets a recognition certificate, or no, just one winner per category and everyone else is losers? What do you think?
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair. I think I like the idea of a hybrid, Aaron, with a very simple scoring. So just, shows exemplary in this category, moderate, and then, lower level, and like just a 3-point scale of the incoming nominations. And then if you have a whole lot of exemplary, then you're going to have to do an assessment by the committee to determine, I think, one winner. So I think there has to be some scoring criteria for each of your categories, but it can be very basic. You know what I'm saying? And then, the overall achiever, the high achiever gets the more significant recognition or gift card or whatever it is. And then the rest get just the certificate of accomplishment. That's my thinking. It just makes it more prestigious that way.
Mm-hmm. Rather than a participation award, right?
Any other comments? Councillor Sharp. You're muted.
Do we make a resolution like to make this program today, or to initiate?
Council's already approved the program. It's the details that we have to go back to council with, and the nominees or the successful nominees.
Can we make a resolution right now to direct Erin and her committee to bring back a proposal for the hybrid version, and then we can approve it in January and have it sent off to council and start immediately?
Well, can we treat this the same way as we were treating the tree planting option? Like, I don't know that you can wait till the January meeting. I think Aaron and Haley need to propose something, send it to the committee, and then maybe we could vote on it like a doodle poll. And if you do something, send it around, and if you get 5 yeas, you're in.
What kind of details are you looking for to vote on? That's what I need to know so I can kind of draft something. Do you want the details of exactly how I'm going to rate each nomination? I feel like that's hard to ask of me right now until I can see what type of what types of events and types of initiatives people are going to submit. Like, how do I rate a tree planting?
No, I don't think we want to get into it. It's just the high level of stuff.
But at some point we need to come up with that criteria, because at some point we have to decide if we think installation of a renewable energy project is more important than a tree planting. So at some point we do need to come up with that criteria.
Sarah, is your hand up?
Yeah, sorry. So you could certainly do some communication, right? If you're looking for ideas, generating or just sort of doing some polling. But the one thing you do have to be careful is when the committee starts making decisions, you do need to do that in the right forum, which would be at this table, if I may call it that. So just be a little careful kind of where that line is, right? Just sort of, again, sharing information and ideas is fine, but I think the actual formation and details of the program probably does need to come in a more formal fashion to this committee. So, some legwork can be done. Just be careful of decision making outside of the committee, if I may.
So then can we today decide that, can we vote in favor or not in favor of the hybrid model that I just proposed? Can we do that? So then I can at least work with Haley on some criteria ideas in the meantime. So who's it? Yeah, go ahead.
Councillor Bothwell.
I was just going to say, I think that would be just the best thing to do is just move forward on a motion to approve the hybrid model and to leave Aaron and Haley to determine a minimum criteria for the categories to establish that and come back to committee in January. So I think the motion would read that we support a hybrid model for the awards, the recognition awards, and that the subcommittee return in with suggested criteria in January. Does that make sense? Hey, Aaron, is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, just so we kind of have an idea of which direction we're going in terms of the criteria. Yeah.
Councillor Sharp.
Or can we send this straight to council now and say that, like, we want to do a hybrid model and that we want our subcommittee or Aaron and Haley to make criteria, and then we can start advertising in January before. Do we have to come back to the committee? Can we just send this to council for endorsement? Like it seems simple enough.
I don't think we have to come back for the criteria, but for the nominees, I think.
Just the nominees? Okay.
Just the nominees. And I think that's good enough at the end of January. That may even be early.
So we don't need council to approve anything between now and when we actually make the recommendation for who should win the awards?
No, I think what Dave is saying, Councillor Sharp is saying is that we would Councillor Bothwell has made a motion, and that would cover everything you need between now and January, whatever it is. Am I right, Councillor Bothwell?
Yeah, I just think Councillor Sharp was suggesting that it go from this meeting in a council endorsement package, right? And I think that's what's gonna, I don't know if it has to, because we've already had council, I think, approve the program of doing the achievement awards. I think all we're doing is directing the subcommittee to on the format of what that would look like. So I think it's an internal motion that we only need to pass here, and Aaron can run with it with Haley and come up with the criteria and the social media outreach and whatever, and just report back at the next, in the January meeting. I think that's my thinking, and maybe I'm missing something, Aaron or Sarah?
I'm okay with that too. I didn't want to hold them up. I want them to be able to take this and run with it. So if that's the direction it goes, then that's perfect. Thanks.
I think, Sarah, my only question is, do we then now have to wait till the end of January before we can start our social media campaign? I feel like that's really late. Or are we going to be able to start something earlier than that?
No, the way I read the minutes, you were given the authority to do that already.
Okay. So then we'll just work.
The minutes were somewhat detailed on that part.
Okay.
So I think the only thing you got to go back with is the nominees.
Okay. Okay, so then back to, is everyone here happy with the hybrid model? Are we going to make a motion to go forward with that criteria or that version?
As I understand it, Councillor Bothwell has made a motion, and it's for internal purposes only, as I understand it. I guess ultimately it will find its way to council, but it's just a sort of a housekeeping matter. And I guess I need a seconder on that one. Do I have a seconder?
Ryan's got his hand up.
I can't see him, Ryan. Sorry, Ryan. Okay. Seconded by Ryan. All in favor? Carries. Okay. So I have, you're done with the Green Acknowledgement Awards, right, Aaron?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So then I have a sort of, I don't know whether we need to pass this or not. I have a motion here or a resolution that the information with respect to the Green Acknowledgement Awards be received by the advisory committee. I don't know that we need that any longer, Peter. Councillor Bob,
Correct, Chair. That's correct. Yeah, that
Okay.
is redundant at this point.
we don't need that. Okay. So that brings us to item 7, which is the Grimsby Beach Tree Inventory Urban Forest Management Plan. And actually the committee, when they considered this matter, they took the ideas that Bob Friesen presented for Grimsby Beach, and the resolution that was passed actually adopted those recommendations for all of Grimsby, not just Grimsby Beach. So I wanted to put it on today's agenda because it required I guess it was a staff report dealing with 4 or 5 different points. And I was just wondering from Sarah when that report might be forthcoming.
So I think the resolution was that the staff were to report back on the feasibility of developing a plan, if I remember correctly. So that is something we will work on. We'll work on having an update to you in January. I can tell you, Olivia and some team, and you heard a little bit even from planning, we have been having conversations as a collective team as to how we're going to tackle some of these pieces and what we're able to do and what the timing is and maybe what we should most focus on. So we are having some of those discussions, and we will be bringing back some information to this committee and potentially also to council as to how we're advancing some of this work, because it has touched a number of different groups over time.
Right. And I don't want to put it on an agenda and then we don't talk, there's nothing to report. I don't think it looks very good. So I just assume, have it a bookmark somewhere where we have those items to come forward. But if they're not going to be on the next agenda, let's not put them on the agenda. It doesn't look really good. So you're saying possibly a report in January?
Yes, or at least what we think we can tackle and what's reasonable and where we're going with it. So I think
Right.
that was the motion was to ask staff about the feasibility of some of the work. So that would be where we would start with this.
Yeah, I got the minutes here somewhere. Yeah, it says staff consider the following in the development of an urban forest management plan for the promotion and protection of the urban tree canopy. Anyways, and I think there was some involvement of the committee in helping with some of that on the private side. And the reason I bring up some of these, I think we have to do a report, or somebody has to do a report, a quarterly report, which is the last item on today's agenda. Then there's the grass mowing. This, I think, is Bruce McKenzie's item, the minimization or changes in the grass mowing. I think you were working on a report on that as well.
Yeah, we are still working on that as well. We've done a couple site visits at a few of our parks, looking at some different options, and also getting together with our partners over in Public Works to try to look at it more collectively. So unfortunately, some of that work is still ongoing. It's just been a variety of pressing priorities going on. But I did want to bring it up as well, because something that you said, Bruce, that still resonates with me a lot, and I wonder if it's another opportunity for this committee is, we can certainly look at our own grass mowing, but you're talking about just the impacts of even a residential lawnmower. I have to say, really stuck with me to the point where I want to get rid of my gas-powered lawnmower. Is there a way that we could do a little bit of a community outreach talking about that and the impacts of mowing? Because again, we have some machines, but there's many, many more residentially. And I just was curious what your thoughts were. Would it be worth suggesting a bit of a campaign or providing some education in the community about what those impacts are, and maybe what others can do as well to lighten that footprint?
Through you, Chair Carl, to Sarah. Sarah, thank you very, very much for that question. I totally support the idea of the town acting as a guide or as an example to all the property owners in the town of Grimsby of doing their part. I haven't circulated some of the articles to the committee that I've circulated to Sarah, but I'd be glad over the next month or two to put a bit of a briefing together as to what the difference would be if private homeowners and commercial property owners converted from gas mowers and gas weed whips to electric. That would make a big difference to overall air quality. And then the other aspect of that is if homeowners could, just as an example, reduce their grass mowing by 10% and put in a rain garden or a flower garden, a pollinator garden, that collectively, that would be a huge area. So when my initial thought was in approaching the town to judge their mowing and mowing programs, having the town set the example is really what I was looking for. Now, there are some specific areas that the town mows, riparian zones, shoreline areas that should not be mowed by anybody because of the effect on water quality and wildlife habitat. So I still look forward, of course, to the response from your department and Public Works. And but like I say, I'll offer to put something together for the committee's consideration in terms of the town promoting the reduction of gas mowers in Grimsby. California, I forget whether it's 2025 or 2030, but I think it's closer to 2025. You won't be able to buy a gas mower in California. California, when it comes to air pollution, always seems to lead the way. And on the other hand, is Quebec. They have strong initiatives about the reduction of gas-powered machinery. And I think as many of you may know, or most people don't think about it at all, there's no air pollution equipment on small gas-powered equipment. There's no catalytic converter, there's no computers, and there's no technical mechanics going through to make sure that they are running properly and reducing it. Some companies like Outboard Marine, Johnson and Evinrude, they've done a really good job of taking their two-stroke engines and having clean exhaust. not perfect exhaust, clean exhaust. But, and the other aspect of mowing is noise. A number of communities have banned gas-powered leaf blowers and gas-powered lawnmowers. So I'll put something together if the committee would like to receive it for that initiative. And at the same time, I look forward to your reporting back to the committee. I think it is important that the town develop a communication plan and the town develop a demonstration sites where, and because there are some pretty easy examples to pick where mowing can be reduced on town property, and then by extension, the private property. Thank you, Sarah. And Chair Carl.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thanks, Chair Carl. Thanks, Bruce and Sarah. I've done my bit here in our little postage stamp backyard. We use one of those Black & Decker weed whacker things, and it actually has a little lawnmower fitting that goes on top of it. And so our rear yard is mowed with a little Black & Decker weed whacker lawnmower thing, which is really, and now all our neighbors have got them because you have to bring it through your house and you don't want to bring a huge noisy gas lawnmower through your house because we can't get to the backyard any other way. So it really works out well in our little tight townhouse subdivisions. I think, Bruce, what Aaron and Sarah are working on is the rollout of a Grimsby Green webpage or link to the town webpage with where we can put our content and post our content. And I think with the new logo and the identity and the branding that we've got now, it would be great for those, you know, how can you help? And did you know? And since you're such an established author, Bruce, I know that you'll be a great content creator to keep that content going weekly or monthly with some great new tips and stuff for the community. Although I do agree with you that we want the town to be the leader, I think from a committee perspective, we can promote the education and outreach through hopefully those social media channels that we're going to be having in place very soon. And we can get some really good outreach through posting on the social media and whatever the town page we get linked to, and then distributing that through our community groups. So I think we have a couple mechanisms to get that message out that we need to get through the town actually being a leader and instrumental, and then through the Grimsby Green Committee showing an educational outreach component through regular, really current and relevant tools to help the community support those initiatives and the initiatives of the committee. So I think it's great. I think we have Sarah, do you think we have a way to get that ball rolling as well through those mechanisms?
I think we do, and I totally agree. We need to do our part. We need to show the way. But I think part of that too is, and I think people will be interested to actually hear how we're doing that. The next piece though should be that and how can you help? And I think that brings that conversation full circle. So I think this is great, and we can sort of really make that full circle and have some great discussion. And I think it's not something people always do think about, and we'll probably be very keen to learn a little bit more about it. And I know Bruce has all the facts and all the details that we need to bring that story forward. So I think that's actually a really exciting opportunity.
So do we need a resolution to do what Bruce has offered to do? It's a kind offer, Bruce.
Well, my pleasure, and I'll just check with my boss at home here. I don't need a resolution.
Okay.
Your choice, though, Chair Carl.
Okay. No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, there are a lot of these types of stories, and you just kind of wonder, we got to get them out there. The only question I have is, do we need council's approval to do these kinds of articles?
I don't think so. I think we would want to provide some updates as we go along with what we're doing. And I think that can come at future meetings as we talk about what we're doing for our part of it. So I think there's still opportunity to do that.
Okay.
I think, realistically, some of this messaging you probably want, I don't know that doing it in December and January really makes sense anyway. You probably want to move it into as people are starting to think about that spring season anyway. So I would say we want to be a bit of a strategic with some of that timing anyway. So I'd say you have time.
Okay. Brings us to the recruitment of new members. Sarah, can you, I see you sent us some applications earlier today.
Yeah, just a quick update to the committee that we did do a recruitment process. We did receive some applications back, and the selection committee has set a date to enter or sort of shortlist and interview. So hopefully for our next meeting, we will have those two member positions filled again. So a few new faces to our group. So just wanted to keep the committee informed as to where we were with that.
We're meeting next Friday, is it, to interview these people? I think.
The 7th, whatever.
So, yeah, okay. So I have a resolution here that says the update provided with respect to the current initiatives. Grimsby Beach, tree inventory, urban forest management, grass mowing, and recruitment of new members be received by the advisory committee. Can I have a mover? Please. Pretty please. Bruce McKenzie, a seconder.
Ryan's got his hand up, Chair.
I can only see 4 squares here. Yeah, okay. Seconded by Ryan. All in favor? Carries. Okay, now I can see everybody. Sorry. New business. The only one that I have is that in the mail today, I got notice of an open house workshop on official plan amendment number 11, which I think is scheduled for Thursday. That would be December the 2nd. I guess that's next Thursday. And it has to do with the Grimsby Beach secondary plan, I believe. So if anybody's interested, it's a virtual meeting. Any other new business? And we cancel our meeting on December the 22nd, which leaves me with a requirement under our terms of reference where we have to do a quarterly a report in the 4th quarter about the activities and accomplishments for the year. And I need a volunteer to do that. Everybody's smiling. Councillor Bothwell, do you know if the other committees have that as a requirement?
We have it in the Heritage Grimsby Advisory Committee that we do a report as well, but it would be brief. We haven't done ours, and you're right. That's another. We do our status update sheet, which comes to every meeting, which basically gives a running update as to what our accomplishments are and what we've done for the year. So rather than maybe trying to cram everything and try to recall what's been done by the committee, if we do keep a running kind of status update as to how we've, what we're accomplishing, what our outstanding items are, Sarah, maybe like we do with the referred matters list and the planning update, and the Heritage Committee has a status update for our work plan. That might help us for future years with having to do the reporting on a quarterly basis, because we'll have a running kind of an update. But for now, I'm sorry, Chair, I'm not going to volunteer myself because I'm a little bit overloaded right at the moment to help with this activity. But I think if we put a status update as to where we are on some of our things, and then when we do our quarterly reports, that will probably serve that same purpose. What are your thoughts?
It's not a quarterly report. I think it's a once a year report, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if you do a regular status update or a quarterly status update to your committee on a regular basis, when you get your annual, accomplishments, you'll have already got like a running kind of tally of what you've accomplished, what you finished, and what's outstanding, and it'll just make it a lot easier to do your accomplishments against your work plan. That's all. So just a suggestion for the future.
Yeah, too late for this year. So do you have any idea when this report is due? Is anybody going to look at it?
Sarah, I think it's just an internal document for the committee and then it goes to council just to be received, right? It's just something we're doing for our own benefit.
Thanks, Counselor. So that this piece is new. The terms of reference, it wasn't in there before. I believe it's just to have a bit of a checkpoint and share where things are going on. I'd like to suggest maybe, and I don't know if Peter would want to chime in, is, given that the year's been so disrupted by COVID as well, would it make sense to suggest to do this a little bit later once we've maybe advanced a few other projects we're working on and we have maybe a little more to share? That might be something that's agreeable as well.
Well, my thoughts, sorry to interrupt, Peter. My thoughts are there's 2 months between this meeting and the next meeting, so it's probably a good time to do it. And waiting for more to include in it is just going to mean more work. So I just as soon do it right between now and January the whatever. And I'm just wondering, is that soon enough? Does anybody know? So nobody knows because this is the first time it's appeared in the terms of reference.
Yeah, that is new. It wasn't in their previous, and I don't know if Peter does have his hand. Maybe he has something to share.
Peter, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, through you, Chair. I was just going to suggest, well, first off, I think the fourth quarter was just more of a suggestion. And maybe perhaps if the awards are going to be coming to council to be presented, that you're going to be handing out, maybe you might want to coordinate having the presentation to council at the same time as the awards being presented out at the meeting. So that's just food for thought, but I don't think council is going to be hounding anyone for the report. I think it's more of a guideline on when you can provide it. And again, in my experience, it's usually a verbal update or a presentation at a council meeting.
Okay. I will undertake to do it then by just going through the minutes of our meetings for this year and preparing something in point form. But I prefer to do it now because I have 2 months to do it. And I was thinking we would do it for the next meeting. We'd have a nice, relaxed meeting. We'd maybe talk about next year, what our priorities would be for next year. We might have a little toast, but somebody killed that meeting. So, and my vision of a nice, relaxed meeting with some goal setting went down the tube. Okay. Is there any other business? If not, I'd like to wish everybody a happy or very
sorry, Carl, I didn't get a chance.
I didn't see your hand up. I
forgot. One of the things I wanted to mention was that in the spring, I think that we want to do some kind of garbage cleanup initiative. We will pair it with like some education around like please don't litter, and ways for people to, or the town to prevent people from littering certain hot spots. Maybe we can get garbage cans, or we can put signs up, or in the worst case, we go and clean up. We get volunteers. We can go and clean up. Personally, I'm involved with a group, the Friends of the 40, and we're doing cleanup around the creek. And we could incorporate. I'd be happy to help, but I know we need to start discussing this. We only have a few more meetings before the spring is here. Maybe Sarah, do we have any initiative towards this, or when should we first start talking about this?
Sure. I think it's something we've talked about aligning to. I know a number of Earth Day activities last year, unfortunately, did get kind of canceled or entirely postponed because of COVID. I suspect you'll see a strong cleanup initiative event come back in some way. Maybe there's a partnership opportunity, but you are right. You probably want to try and talk about it early on if we want to have something ready for that timeline. So maybe one suggestion would be to put it on the agenda for the January meeting, give everybody a chance to give a bit of thought is, how do we want to show up for that time frame? Is there anything else we'd want to do? And then have a discussion then. That would be my suggestion.
Maybe I could start an ad hoc committee like outside and we could discuss it and then bring back our thoughts.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so any members who are interested in this, I'm already doing it with the Friends of the 40. Like, it's the kind of thing where we might spend a couple hours talking about it, and then on the actual day of the event, it's like 2 hours. Pick up a garbage bag and some gloves, and it's not a huge commitment. So if you're interested, get in touch with me. That's committee members or people watching from the public. We'll be doing something in the spring. There's plenty of time, but we can discuss where we'll go with it.
Aaron?
I was just going to add that many of the Grimsby Beach residents have been cleaning up the beach area every Earth Day for years now. So there are other groups throughout the community that have been doing this on their own. So yeah, if there's a way we can bring all the groups together and make it more organized, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested, you can email me.
Sarah, is your hand still up?
Yeah, just similar to that, I know the Rotary Club is trying to do something as well. So, maybe there's a way just to align a few of these different partners and projects and really make a bigger splash. So there might be some good opportunity here, and I can make that contact connection for you too, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm connected to the Rotary too, so
Perfect.
I will reach out. Thanks.
Perfect.
Anybody else? Okay, we're done. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
See
It
you
feels
next
early
year.
for Merry Christmas, but
See you next year.
Very
Take care, everybody.
Good night. Best of the season. Stay well.